Welcome to Community Liberation Podcast, a podcast about applying revolutionary theory to revolutionary practice. My name is Silvia, and I'm an organizer from Community Liberation Programs, or CLP. CLP is a multinational scientific socialist mass organization based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We currently run decolonization programs in Oakland and San Francisco, such as our Oakland Chinatown Grocery Distribution and our San Francisco Mission Youth Street Medic program. We also hold public political education events and classes. To learn more about our programs, you can follow us on Instagram at Community Liberation Programs and Twitter at ComLibPrograms. And you can support our Buy Me a Coffee and Give Butter in the show notes. This podcast and other decolonization programs for the people are 100% funded by grassroots donations like yours. So today we are going to have another episode on our Combat Liberalism series. This will be our third one so far, I believe. And it's going to be a movie review. It's going to be a movie review of I Love Boosters by Boots Riley. This movie came out, I think, in May.
Yeah, I think May.
In May. And I saw it, and my comrade Geraldo, who will be joining us today, watched it sometime last month.
I think it was like a couple weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
So, we just wanted to give our review of it, kind of go over the movie, go over Boots Riley and his responses online, the funding of the movie, and just, a lot of things about the movie, a lot of critiques about the movie, and we're not, I guess, to preface, we're not really, big movie reviewers or movie buff people, but this is something that we feel like we have experience with because we are a community organization, we are a scientific socialist organization, and this movie has socialist themes, right? Like Boots Riley definitely would call himself a socialist, and
I think he would call himself a communist.
He would call himself a communist, and he wanted to create a movie representing communism. That was his main goal. Like his last movie, he also had a critique of capitalism, and this one is also his attempt at a critique of capitalism. So Geraldo, do you want to give a little preface?
I guess we've been kind of going back and forth behind the scenes about do we do a movie review on this on our podcast, or do we not? I had my own thoughts on it. I think, at least personally, I think with regarding CLP's podcast, we talked about it last episode, but cultural critique is something I don't think CLP generally needs to be going down all the time, which we haven't really done that often. I think we've only done that maybe a little bit with the discussion of our articles that we wrote about music and whatnot. But I think cultural critique kind of can be kind of trite and kind of a dead end. We don't want to be constantly just talking about movies and whatnot. That's not really what this podcast is about. But the reason why we wanted to do it, ultimately we did come to the decision to do this podcast, was because of some of the issues within the general storytelling that I think we wanted to highlight, because it does give kind of an incorrect view of reality that he is presenting, at least with regards to the political, economic, the kind of things that the conclusions of the story that he wants to put forth, which I think are very much accommodating to certain segments of the so-called left, but is actually an ideological dead end, like many things. So that's why we wanted to do it. This will have obviously spoilers throughout, so please, if you don't want to be spoiled by whatever we're talking about, please don't listen. But if you don't care about that, feel free to listen. We are going to go and talk about the general storyline and the themes and whatnot before we get into any of the critiques or whatnot. But I do recommend, if you don't want to be spoiled, stop listening now, because we are definitely going to go into spoilers and stuff like that. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could start off with kind of a description, plot line of the movie. So the movie is based in Oakland, a little bit. I feel like you see more of San Francisco. A lot of it was like set. So, and there's like I think, was it stop motion at the end?
Yeah, there was a lot of stop motion.
So you see like a little bit of parts of Oakland. You see San Francisco, and it's about a group of women they form what's called the Velvet Gang. That's what they're called by their opposition, basically, and they steal a lot of clothing from this specific clothing brand store from the character that Demi Moore plays. I forgot her name, but she's like a white woman that... Christy? I think it's Christy.
Maybe it was Christy or something like that, yeah.
She owns like a high-end fashion brand, and so they go to the store and they steal and then they resell it. So that's why they're called boosters. That's why it's called I Love Boosters. So, you know, they've been stealing clothing, selling at a discounted price for a while, and the main character, played by Keke Palmer, Corvette, she really aspires to be a fashion designer herself. She like creates different designs, and then eventually Christy actually steals one of those designs that she made. And in the beginning, like, you are introduced to the characters, and then you're also introduced to like one of the characters that Boots used before in his previous movie, Lakeith Stanfield. I forgot the character's name.
Yeah, he's like a demon.
He's a demon.
Well, I guess that's a little bit going ahead, but
it's going ahead.
But he's basically like her love interest, but also like her. It's kind of like an enemy or like what do you call it? Like an antagonistic character that like you're supposed to be like rooting against. Yeah,
so she kind of has like a strange sensation around him, and he's trying to like antagonize her, and he's basically kind of the enemy in the beginning. And then so they are stealing clothes, and they end up working at the clothing store. Like Corvette, Keke Palmer, applies to work there, and then her friends also work there with her, and it's like very exploitative. Like they are only allowed like 1 minute lunches or something, so they have to like run and get food and come back, and they have to buy all the clothing that they wear from the store while they're working there. So it's a high-end brand of people who make minimum wage, and they have to buy the high-end clothing, and they even get in trouble for buying last year's makes, which they just stole probably last year's makes and were wearing, by their white manager. And all of a sudden they get called in the back to have like a team meeting, and there's someone who steals every single clothing item in the store with this like magical device that just sucks all of the clothes and actually takes it back to where they're manufactured in China. And it's basically like a teleporting device, but it does other things. So she sucks all the clothing, brings it back to China, and then you kind of learn that storyline of how she got there through the teleporting device. And basically they're being exploited in China as well, to arguably a lot harsher conditions. Like her family members are getting cancer and they're dying, and so her and I think her cousin like planned this scheme to take her to the US and then suck up all the clothes and bring them back to the manufacturer to like
and hold them hostage
to then be able to use worker power to get better working conditions from Christy.
Yeah. If that's her name, I don't remember.
It's Christy.
Yeah.
And so they kind of meet up with her. They meet up with the girl from China. I don't remember her name either. She's played by Poppy Liu, but I don't know the character's name. Yeah. And they end up like working together, right? So the Velvet Gang and Poppy, I'm just going to call her Poppy because that's her real name. They work together and they are figuring out like how they both want to kind of overthrow this company. Not overthrow, but like get what they want. Yeah. Poppy wants like better working conditions for her family, and then really the Velvet Gang, like they start because Christy steals Corvette's design, so they want to get back at her for doing that. And then they're also interacting with like one of the other workers at the store who's like a union organizer, and this is kind of the part where we'll critique a lot from this point forward. She teaches them that the device doesn't just teleport things and like suck them up and send them somewhere else. It can do other things. It can like create.
It can
heighten contradictions.
Yeah.
I was like trying to figure out the wording for that.
Yeah.
So she was showing them that, and then she kind of goes over a definition of dialectical materialism to them. And then they all start kind of working together because she's like, hey, I told you about this. You need to like work with me too. And her ultimate goal is to like bring everyone into a union and get better working conditions and higher pay for the people in the United States. And heighten contradictions, as we said. And yeah, basically that's like the main plot.
There's like other plots, like subplots in between, like throughout each scene there's like news playing, and then there's like the same 3 people, I guess 4 people, I guess you can say, that are like talking in front of the news saying like, oh, crime's bad and we need more cops, or we need more oppressive conditions or whatever. And there's also another side plot where like Keke Palmer and her friend were like, oh, there's this doctor, I don't remember his name, and he's like, well, he'll show you how to get rich quick, and it's basically just a pyramid scheme, and he's just like profiting off of like poor people.
And it's the most obvious pyramid scheme because he's literally drawing a triangle, like a pyramid.
Yeah.
So it's very surrealist. Like it's a surrealist movie. It's like in your face. It's making things very obvious and just like very like overly artistic. Getting into the critique a little bit, like everything's like so colorful and like very abstract and exaggerated and weird.
Like Christy lives in the leaning Millennium Tower in San Francisco, which is like, and it's in a more surrealist way that it's actually leaning to the point where like you have to, like, you're basically climbing up a hill.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole scene about that. But anyhow, like, so the news or whatever, they like the interviewees, I guess you can call them, we find out that, you know, there's this whole like mystique about this like $100,000 suit that Christy has made, and that there's special suits that she has in the back or whatever, and that's why they got hired by the company, because they wanted to find the $100,000 suits, but it doesn't exist. But they later find out after like going to, because Christy has this huge fashion show, and they were going to use that to also heighten the contradictions, and that's where like I guess a major like antagonism kind of comes forth, you know, the major kind of conflict or whatever between what's happening in China, which also is happening at the fashion show, and contradictions are heightening, and they're using the dialectical materialism gun to heighten those contradictions. And as they do that, they find that the skin suits are actually, well, the suits are actually skin suits. I went a little bit ahead, but they're all the same 5 people, and they all have special skin suits that Christy made so that she can push for policies that are beneficial for her company and detrimental to the community. And so they use the dialectical materialism gun for them to, as a threat if they don't give them the suits. So they take off their skin suits and then they steal them. And then there's another contradiction there of like between one side of the Lavender gang, Velvet gang, was one wants to make money, and then Keke Palmer's like, I don't give a shit anymore. I just want to, be over with this. I'm like over it, basically.
Yeah.
And she wants to do the right thing. And there's a whole chase scene, blah, 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 blah. They get the skin suits and, you know, they're able to make money off of it, but also they heighten the contradictions. And at the end, they're able to heighten the contradictions so much that working conditions are better in China as well as working conditions are better in the United States, and ultimately a peaceful revolution happens. A workers' peaceful revolution happens, and people have, you know, a social democratic lifestyle where, you know, everyone has healthcare and housing and everything's all hunky-dory at the end of it. But, you know, just kind of a social democratic conclusion to the story, and it kind of just ends there, and it kind of just ends like Poppy and her family are doing well. They no longer have cancer because they heightened the contradiction so much that they reversed the cancer because they destroyed the clothing.
They destroyed so much clothing, so it made it so they didn't even make that clothing. Yeah. So then they didn't get the cancer because they never made the clothing.
Because their surplus value wasn't extracted. Yeah. And then, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's basically it at the end of the story.
Yeah, we missed Lakeith Stanfield's character a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So he's like, he was the main character in Boots Riley's first film, Sorry to Bother You, and you know, I really enjoy him as an actor. I enjoyed like most of the actors in this film. Like I thought that the lineup was really good, but his character was just like so unnecessary. Like he's introduced as like a mysterious man at the club, and then like they get each other's numbers, and he's like messaging her, and she's just like, I'm not sure, I don't really know if I want to like be with him or whatever. And then she gets like, Keke Palmer gets revealed by her friend that like he sucks
the soul out of women
while having sex with them, and he's a demon. And she's like, oh, well, good thing I didn't, like, go out with him or whatever. And then, like, he feels remorse about it and helps her out, and that's how they get into the fashion show later. And then, like, there's, like, an answered, like, relationship at the end. Like, are they going to get together? Are they not? Like, is he going to overcome his demonism, basically? So it was just, like, a very, like, unnecessary, like, subplot to the movie. And, like, the real antagonist of Corvette was Christy, not him. So he was just like this secondary like character that didn't really get a lot of screen time, and you couldn't even hear anything he was saying in the whole entire film anyways. So we'll get to that too. So yeah, that was the synopsis of the film. I think we touched on most things that happened.
We probably missed something.
Probably missed some things.
Like the one thing we did miss was like they like kind of sell their like, because, you know, they're kind of a lump. I guess you can call them like a lumpen, part of the lumpen class, right? And they, you know, some of the things that they did do, like, you know, they're getting cracked down on, and so they're like, oh, we're gonna need to sell our clothes. So they sold a lot of their clothes for discounted rates to children during, like, you know, back to school. Back to school. That's how she meets Lakeith. That's how he gets to the number for Lakeith. Yeah. And so that's like, they're kind of like, oh, like, we're actually doing a good thing. Like, we're redistributing the clothes. You know, we're making some money, but like they're not getting ripped off, and people can get clothes that they're not going to have access to. So that's just another side plot that we didn't touch on, but that's basically
she also like lives in
abandoned chicken shop.
Oh yeah, chicken shop. I was like, what was the shop again?
Like they're like squatting in a chicken shop.
Yeah, basically.
Which was, I guess, kind of cool. Yeah, let's get into, I guess, the background on, like, I guess before we saw the movie. Like, there was obviously a lot of chatter. There's really no way for, you know, folks aren't, I guess if you're not on social media or anything, like, you probably didn't get to see this, but there was a lot of chatter regarding the movie prior to the movie coming out with Boots Riley. So I guess I can just go into the critique or the criticisms that people had of the film prior to seeing the movie, which was that Boots Riley, he got $20 million from Anna Purim, who I think her name's Megan Ellison, who's the daughter of Larry Ellison, who's the multi-billionaire CEO of Oracle and massive owner of TikTok and all these other companies, and he's an ardent Zionist. He supports the Zionist so-called state of Israel, and he's probably one of the the most ardent supporters of that. He also, I think, supported the takeover of is it NBC or it's one of the major
MSNBC?
yeah, one of the
Maybe?
I don't remember with Barry Weiss. It was massive news agency takeover that he also supported and like pushed forward to have a more accommodating politic for Zionism within the so-called United States. So like he is a huge Zionist, and his daughter owns Annapuram and has gotten support from her father as well to create Annapuram. And Boots Riley got $20 million from them, as well as Annapuram also works with Neon, which is the massive, I guess you can call them like the producer or like the agency that was also pushing the film out, which kind of unironically kind of messed kind of kneecapped Boots Riley, because Neon is known for having pretty terrible media publicity and whatnot. So that'll come later with some of the critiques. But people were rightfully having issues with that, with regards to Zionist funding. Like, why are you getting $20 million from the Zionist, massive Zionist company to make this movie, and it's supposed to be like communist and it's supposed to be like leftist, and we already saw what happened with Al-Aqsa Flood October 7th and all the progress we've made from then. Like, why do that? And Boots Riley had issues with that critique. He never really answered it to some degree. Some folks expected him to say, like, how else are you gonna make a big movie? Sometimes you have to make sacrifices or whatever for to push out radical media. But he really didn't really go that route. He kind of just went on antagonizing other people on Twitter, X, as well as on Reddit. He specifically went after like all types of people, especially some people in our circles that follow us on social media that questioned him, like, why are you taking this funding, this Zionist funding? And he basically just kind of brushed it off, like, like, what else, why don't you make a movie, was one of the critiques, or what do you want me to do about it? And one thing happened was, famous, I guess you can't call him famous, I guess it is, he is famous, he has 100,000 followers. Bad Empanada is a bread tuber, a YouTube leftist. He critiqued the film, and he has a large following. And Boots Riley, obviously, like, he was name searching himself constantly on X, and any critique that happened, he was going to be under it. Like, that's like a legitimate like thing that happened. He was doing that on Reddit as well, but specifically with Bad Empanada, he just like was going in on him, and it was weeks long like issues with Bad Empanada, and like going after him as being a YouTuber and having a Patreon, and Patreon supports Zionism, which definitely does. Like, we got banned from Patreon because of our stance on Palestine, which I do think that's a legitimate critique. And blah 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 blah, like, you're no better than me, that kind of stuff. And that kind of like from my perspective, it kind of threw me off. Like, why am I gonna like watch this movie from someone that's not taking things seriously and kind of going after people, with legitimate critiques or legitimate like questions about the funding of the film. And it kind of set a bad precedent for Boots Riley. He was very antagonistic to these critiques, and a lot of people, for the most part, were kind of demoralized from wanting to see the film. And also the film wasn't shown in a lot of movie theaters because Neon didn't have like access to a lot of like smaller movie theaters. He only had the larger like AMC or Cinemark or whatever. I don't know what the other names of the big movie screen. Whatever. But he basically he didn't do well. The opening box office was a flop. Basically, he didn't make that much money. And he was begging on Reddit for people to watch the movie. A lot of people, were like, I can't watch the movie anywhere. Is it going to be on streaming? And he just kind of like didn't really care to answer that question. and yeah, he was going after people that were like critiquing the film, especially like some of the critiques will go into. And other podcasts and like other folks that have critiqued the film recently, like Sad Francisco is another podcast. They did a critique of it. I haven't listened to it, but they posted like a small snippet of it, and Boots Riley was in the comments going after them, and that kind of stuff. So some of those we would say are unprincipled, like character, unprincipled kind of character attacks and whatnot that I think are like not worthy of like a person who calls himself a communist to, defy and critique, and kind of get really upset about it and like attack people's character. I think that's like really unprincipled, and that's something that I think Boots Riley needs to sit with. I think that's a major issue with why the film did poorly. Also, it came out right when like other major films were coming out. So I mean, you can't really totally base it off of his attacks on other people. But yeah, that's like some of the things that kind of are the background of the critiques, antagonisms to critique that he was showing.
Yeah, and I feel like the other films that are coming out at the same time are like super low budget YouTuber films, and they're doing like Backrooms, Obsession. They're doing so much better than I Love Boosters. So like sometimes you don't really need all that Zionist funding to make a good movie, like he could have made a good movie without all that funding. Like he has enough wealth he could source from, non-Zionist funders. They exist to make small budget films. People make films all the time. People will make films about Palestine, different things that obviously don't have Zionist funding. So there's a way to do it. And he didn't do that. I mean, it was pretty obvious that he was going to go this way anyways, because his last movie, Sorry to Bother You, is basically a critique of Amazon. Mm-hmm. And then he ended up having a show
on Amazon.
I Am a Virgo, right? Mm-hmm. On Amazon.
Yeah.
Streaming on Amazon.
And people had critiques of that too, and he had the same kind of rebuttal of like, what do you expect me to do?
Yeah. And like to some extent, like we all need to be using these platforms. Like it's really hard to fully get away from, these large monopolies under capitalism. And it kind of goes to the question of, like, is there any, like, ethical consumption under capitalism, right? And that's, like, consumption-wise. It's, like, as a consumer, that type of argument you can make. And, like, we have our podcast on Spotify. We have on Apple Podcasts. But, like, we're not making literally any money for our podcasts. Mm-hmm. And it's the way to reach the most people. And I guess Boots Riley could make that argument. Like, if I have it on Amazon Prime, like, it reaches the most people, which, I mean, that... I don't know how many people actually have Amazon Prime and use it. I'm assuming like a decent amount because people like it for getting like
movies and
deliveries like over like 24 hours or whatever. Yeah. I don't personally have Amazon Prime, so I don't have experience with that. But because he's making content to therefore make profit off of people and through a more exploitative way, it's kind of a moot argument. Like, he's not being a consumer. He's, like, the one that is making the profit. He's the one using the service to make money from it. And then there's other critiques of, like, Boots Riley, like, living in the Oakland Hills and, like, having a lot of wealth, having parents that made a lot of money. I think his dad was, like, a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Still is a lawyer.
Yeah. So there's like other things that people have that I am not really going to get into because it's not as important as the movie and things like that.
I think the thing, I think that's a major critique that we would have as CLP is like, you didn't need to take the Zionist funding, and like you didn't need to. If you did, you already took it, then that's fine or whatever. Like, then provide a rationale for it, not attacking people for asking for your rationale. And there was other things that people brought up, that were relevant, like after October 7th, Boots Riley attacked Hamas, and the Palestinian resistance as being a creation of the so-called Zionist entity. And he was critiqued for that over and over and over again, because people brought it up, like, if you have that belief of critiquing the Palestinian resistance, then you taking Zionist funding is quite questionable. And he's like, well, that was 3 years ago, and provide me sources for me to change my mind. Yeah, so, Boots Riley was provided this study that showed that the Palestinian resistance wasn't funded by Israel or founded by Israel or whatever. And he still actually hasn't read it. There was no actual, him responding to the article that was sent to him. He said, I'll read it and change my mind once I read it.
That's just such a, chauvinist attitude. Provide me evidence. Give me the answers to this.
Yeah.
Where it's sometimes you are responsible for your education to a point, and you can't just ask people to provide you one, you cannot ask people to provide you evidence without doing your own research. It's just lazy liberalism.
Yeah.
And two, it's you didn't even read it and you didn't even respond.
Yeah.
It's a cycle it's not a cycle, but it happens again and again with Boots Riley, where he gets critiqued, and then he doesn't, and then they actually shut him down with really good evidence and a very good argument, and then just doesn't reply. He'll reply once, but then he doesn't end the argument, and because he knows he's wrong.
Yeah, and I think don't make statements that are inaccurate, especially statements that are inherently Zionist or are inherently against the Palestinian cause.
Yeah.
Just don't make statements like that. You are a massive individual. You have clout. You have social capital, and you also have monetary capital. Don't say this stuff. You're actually one, it's detrimental to the movement, but also it's not useful. It's not a useful thing to be saying. No investigation, no right to speak. And unfortunately, we live in the so-called West, where Western people are going to say whatever they want without investigating it.
Yeah.
And then he tried to cover his tracks by speaking with the Oakland arms embargo, saying he supports it, right? And it's just that's another critique I have, is why even have him on that? When he accepted $20 million. They also had
Hassan Piker.
Yeah,
right?
Hassan Piker, who's advocating for Zionists to be elected. It's kind of so the arms embargo, you want an arms embargo, but really the arms embargo has already been co-opted by the Democrats, when they are basically saying we don't want offensive weapons for the Zionist entity. We want only defensive weapons. And those defensive weapons are actually offensive weapons that actually kill people. And so yeah, that's another aside, and that's something that I think was kind of disgusting, and that's something that needs to be critiqued. But anyhow, our criticisms are, you shouldn't have taken the money, and in this case, you did take the money, and you need to provide a rationale for it, or a self-criticism for it, which we'll never see. And I doubt he'll be listening to this podcast, but you never know, he might actually name search himself.
Yeah. He also went after a black woman on TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Who was uncomfortable with the movie. And I won't get into it too much, but it was just wild. The amount of effort he goes into attacking people that disagree with him. When you're a famous person, you're creating art or film, you have to know it's going to be critiqued. You have to accept that and be an adult, and people are not going to like it.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people walked out of the movie because they just after 5 minutes, they were just this is ridiculous. I don't like this. And it wasn't for them. And, some people really enjoyed it. That's what happens with movies. That's literally life. So just acting very childlike and just kind of going after people is not gonna help the movement if that's what you want to do, and you want to be a communist and show people what communism is. Attacking a bunch of people who disagree with you on your art is not really conducive to your goal. But I think we'll get into a general criticism of the film now that we started with kind of a background of all the antagonisms with Boots Riley. But yeah, I think there was a few main points that we wanted to cover. Technical issues with the movie, storytelling, and like the use of the actors, which I already got into quite a bit about the use of the actors already. But
yeah, I mean, we don't have to touch that.
The technical issues that I had with this movie was the sound was really poor quality. Like, you couldn't really understand some of the actors and what they were saying. There was obviously like a point in the movie where there was like really loud music in the store. Like, it was like you know, an exaggeration of when you go into a store and the music's like extremely loud, and like you just like turn it up to not let the boss to not let the workers be able to say their piece of mind and like hear him out. And like, yeah, okay, we're not gonna hear them. But there was other points to where like the sound and the mixing was just so loud, and the point where you need to hear what the actor is saying, you couldn't hear what they were saying.
Yeah, like Lakeith's character.
Yeah,
because every time he talked with Keke Palmer, there would be like a zoom in and there'd be music in the background.
Yeah,
but it was so loud you actually couldn't hear him talk.
Yeah.
But there was also moments like with, as I mentioned, the news bits. The news bits, you were supposed to hear it.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to, they're obviously talking about like wanting more police and wanting to like, or whatever, right? But you actually couldn't hear anything that they were saying. You only saw the headlines. But it clearly the intention was that you wanted to hear what they were saying because they're going to be saying reactionary things.
Yeah.
So yeah, the sound was pretty awful, I would say. I would say also like, I don't know, maybe this is nitpicky, but I felt like the music choice was kind of like, I mean, I get it. It was
a subjective opinion, but
it was surrealist, right? And you wanted more surrealist music, right? But I felt like a lot of the music was kind of like just reused a lot of the time. Actually, a lot of it was reused. But then when I was looking at like the soundtrack of I Love Boosters, a lot of that I felt like I didn't hear a lot of those music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like the music was kind of a weak point too, to the film as well.
Yeah, I think like other technical things. Oh man, I had a thought and then I like lost it.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I think, I guess I can talk while you think about what you're gonna say.
It wasn't like a sound technical thing. It was another thing about the movie. Oh, okay, now I remembered. So this movie was kind of like, what is it called? I'm sorry. This movie was marketed as a movie like based in pretty much Oakland. That's like what they were like, it's based in Oakland because he likes to have movies and TV because he's from Oakland, like all based in Oakland. And you see like international, like you see like some stores and stuff, but then that was it. And then a majority of the movie was in San Francisco, like of the actual streets, and then it was stop motion, I guess, in San Francisco. Actually,
yeah,
it wasn't even in Oakland.
In San Francisco,
so it was not an Oakland movie. Like I think Sorry to Bother You felt like an Oakland movie. You had shots of like the Oakland Hills. You had Telegraph, where he lived in that one building, and like the start of Telegraph in downtown Oakland.
Corner, yeah.
And you kind of like could situate yourself in the movie and be like, oh yeah, this is a movie based in Oakland. The other one was just like San Francisco Bay Area, mostly San Francisco.
Yeah, a lot of it was you actually didn't really ever see a lot of like the background or like that it was within Oakland or within San Francisco, because a lot of it was like in confined spaces. So you kind of, it was almost like it was to some degree, and maybe this is his for reasoning for this, was that it was claustrophobic. Like you're in sets.
Yeah, and I guess like quote, like Walnut Creek, kind of like where the malls were. Yeah, it was also supposed to be Walnut Creek because they mentioned Walnut Creek a few times in the movie. Yeah,
and then like they had the they had the San Francisco Westfield Mall. they drove through it, like literally drove into it, but it was stop motion. And Russell was there.
Yeah, that was like so random.
It was literally just like
Eric Andre at the end.
Eric Andre was the police super soldier.
Yeah.
Because they heightened the contradiction and made him a super soldier police officer that was trying to kill them. Yeah, so a lot of the scenes are like it was like a flavor of Bay Area, but it wasn't really like it didn't really feel like Bay Area.
I mean, I understand why like Christy was in San Francisco. Like obviously this woman that is a fashion designer would not live in Oakland. So like that part made sense to me, but I feel like there was a lot of filming of like the Velvet Gang and them just like existing, and those could have been shots. Like what I would have wished with the film is like more Oakland based, and like even just like driving shots of like they're driving over to Walnut Creek or like the city or something. Which I get it. It was like the big critique of the film is like it was like kind of like Cat in the Hat. Or I guess that's what people liked about it. They were like, oh, it's like an adult version of Cat in the Hat. So it's like, oh, it's like very exaggerated and like everything's colorful and it's like, oh, things get big and then they get small and like all that. But yeah, I think it could have been done a little bit better, or it could have just not been advertised as like an Oakland film. Like
it doesn't change the movie in any way, shape, or form if it was an Oakland film or if it wasn't. Like, it's a movie. It
didn't feel like an Oakland film. It just felt like it was like loosely based off of San Francisco, but an alternate reality.
Yeah. And then I think another critique of the film was generally the storytelling.
Yeah.
Like we already touched on it, like he's side character that was basically useless, as well as like some of the other side bits. But I think another issue was like it was basically following the same format as Sorry to Bother You. There's character that is down and out, gets a job, finds about the contradictions of said job, heightens the contradictions, resolution, and then at the end, social democracy is the end all be all. And that's basically the through line of both films. At the end of each film, there's a twist. It's kind of like M. Night Shyamalan. There's a twist.
Yeah.
Sorry to bother you. Spoilers. He turns people into workhorses.
Yeah.
And then here, the twist is that people are in skin suits that are changing public opinion on what's happening in the world.
The Workhorse is a lot better of a storyline, in my opinion.
Yeah, because the thing was...
And it was... Yeah. I mean, like, to get into that movie a little bit, like, it felt like it was still a surrealist film, but there were moments where it felt like it was real. So the surprise at the end was, like, I watched that in theaters when it came out, like, 9 years ago, and it felt like it was an actual surprise for me. Like, I was like, oh my god, they're like horses. And I thought it was done so much better. I thought it was funnier, like the white voice. Yeah. And
there was actual comedy.
Yeah, there was a lot of comedy in it, and
the
there was more of Oakland. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier.
It was better. I think the actors were used better.
Yeah, they were used better.
Or they showed themselves better throughout the film.
So I do think that film is like definitely better, but it still has the same like social democrat conclusion. And I think like at the time when I was watching that film, like I thought the conclusion was really good just because I was a lot less politicized than I am now. But I still think that movie, like Sorry to Bother You, is a better film, and the fact that he just kind of used the same format, so you're like, oh, there's gonna be a twist, but it doesn't really feel like a twist at the end of I Love Boosters because the whole thing is like weird and like surreal and not a real thing. So you're like, okay, they're skin suits.
Yeah.
And like you knew there was gonna be something about the $100,000 suits. I mean, I didn't expect them to be like skin suits. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, I knew that was gonna happen. Like I didn't expect that. It was like, oh, okay, that's what it is. But it wasn't like, oh my god, wow, that's crazy. Like it was just like, okay, they are not real people, basically.
They're real people that sold themselves out.
Yeah, and they created characters for Christy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. the twist at the end was unsatisfactory because I think the film was so far out and far gone that like that was just not really like that big of a twist. Yeah, but I think that's basically all the kind of technical critiques and like storytelling critiques that we have. Like I think there's really not much else to say there.
Yeah, so Geraldo, do you want to get into, I think, the biggest
the
part of
critiques.
The political part of the movie, where the union organizer who wants to heighten the contradictions and knows about the weird magical device.
Yeah, I guess.
And her description of dialectical materialism.
Yeah, I guess, a major issue that I had with the film, I don't know if we should, I guess we'll start there, right? There's other issues regarding this, but yeah, so the character, she talks about dialectical materialism. The gun is a dialectical materialism gun or something to that effect. And she goes through like a telling of what dialectical materialism is, which is dialectical materialism is the thesis and the antithesis, and they collide in contradiction, and they create a synthesis of both of the thesis and antithesis, and it becomes a new thing. There's actually a segment at the end of the movie that if you stay till the end of the movie, they kind of go over like, and then so with this, which I think they probably should have included that because then it would have been more clarifying what this is, because it kind of just was out. It was literally out of the norm. Like it was just like said randomly.
Yeah.
It kind of was like, okay, for someone that doesn't know what this is, they're like, okay, what is this? Like, who cares? But in the end of the movie, if you watch it at the end of the credits, she's like, the thesis and antithesis, they are colliding and become the synthesis, and these synthesis become, the thesis, antithesis, and it's spiraling up and up and up until, contradictions resolve itself ad infinitum. But, I think a major critique of it is like, one, it kind of just like happens out of the blue.
Yeah. And
then two, it's an incorrect definition of dialectical materialism. And three, and this is a major issue, I think, with this film more so than with Sorry to Bother You, is that like it has a major assumption that like the people that are watching this film are too stupid to actually come to the conclusions themselves, so they have to be beaten over the head with these concepts or with what's happening, and it kind of has an ungraceful depiction of what people are actually like able to do themselves. And I think this is generally an issue with like the left here in the so-called West, or in the first world, is that like there's this assumption that people are too dumb to understand things, and that we need to dumb things down so much so that like a lot of the times it becomes actually kind of condescending, and it kind of like reifies the critiques that people have of like people are too academic, or people are like too philosophical or whatever, and it's kind of reinforces that mentality. Like it assumes people are too stupid to understand, so you're going to be dumbing things down to a point where people don't even really care to really engage with it, because you think that they're too stupid to understand. And that's kind of what happened with this film. Like the dialectical materialism like issue, or what thing that they brought up with the dialectical materialism gun, is blatantly false. Like it doesn't actually go over like quantitative change to qualitative change.
It doesn't even talk about change.
Not really, no.
Like she doesn't describe how like change is through working, like for her concepts, like it's through like class struggle and like working class struggle in her context with the workers. Like we are able to create the change. We cannot wait for the man or the government or whatever to make the change for us. Like the people have the power. And I guess like he shows that at the end, but like the way to describe dialectical materialism to people that don't understand it is through those different concepts, and it's a lot more than just like thesis and antithesis. Like that's like one aspect of like a contradiction, like the positive and negative end of like magnets, right, opposing each other, and then the contradiction, and one will overcome the other, and it will be a new thing. Like that's just one part of materialism, and it's not even like the most important part to like understand with the context of the film. They talked about like creating change through class struggle, then it would have been a little bit more apropos to the finale of the movie. But maybe, I don't know, maybe he didn't want to make it so in your face there, and it just wanted to be like, oh, this is like a stoner person that like has maybe read a little bit of like Marx or whatever, and they like know about this gun somehow and are trying to convince the Velvet Gang to become part of the union and becoming union organizers for their advantage, basically, because their job is horrible.
Yeah, and you know, it's a incorrect definition of dialectical materialism. Like, if he went down the route of like thesis, antithesis, synthesis, which I have my own issues with, I think it's just because it's like so simplistic and not even really actually understanding like the full depth of dialectical materialism. But then like that just ends there. Like the synthesis happens and there's nothing after that, which is like idealistic and like not true. Like it's just like history doesn't just stop because communism happens, right? Or like socialism happens. And I think that's a major issue, because then people just come with, okay, so like worker struggles, like once we get our $7 raise, then that's it. We're making a living wage. We don't have to fight anymore. Like that's it. Like that's basically the ideological conclusion of that. But I guess going a little bit before this, I guess going after this critique of the dialectical materialist like definition is like his understanding of class dynamics between like the first world and the third world is a major issue, and that like, and we'll go a little bit more into this, but like generally an issue is that like the contradictions between the first world and the third world, like the third world is so dependent on the first world that the first world needs to save the third world. But the only way that the first world is able to save the third world is by having a special dialectical materialism contradiction gun that is made by the evil CCP and using it against them to then have a social democratic revolution at the end. Like that's basically what he is like. That's generally what he thinks is like correct. Like that's his correct opinion of things. But like there's so many issues with that. Like it has a Western chauvinist like perspective, like that the third world needs to be saved by the first world workers, and that like the first world will have its revolution and it'll save the third world, which is like I think a major issue that is like has been an issue since like that even Marx talked about, you know, in like late 1800s, right? That even Lenin talks about and Stalin talks about and all these other people have talked about, like this like Western Eurocentrism like is like inherently problematic, because the places where revolution actually happens is the third world. Like Russia, a semi-feudal country, had a revolution, though it failed. They had a revolution. It had a workers' revolution, had a socialist revolution. China as well, and all these other countries like were pushing forward with, you know, socialist revolution. In the third world, what's become of the first world? Nothing. What have we gotten? We've gotten, you know, social democratic reformism in the Nordic countries and in the European Union and in the European West. And then here in the core, we have super profits that are buying off people, that they can get all the commodities that they ever wanted at cheap prices at the exploitation of the third world, right? So that's a major critique of the film. It's like that the third world is dependent on the first.
I also think like the use of China was very interesting to be like the quote-unquote third world country that Boots picks, especially in like the year of our Lord. I guess he made it like 25 or something.
25.
Whatever. But like China has like drastically changed in the last like 10 to 15 years and has really like eradicated poverty. Like this type of like factory worker like issues in China is like so low compared to other countries that he could have picked. Like he could have picked like India or the Philippines or like somewhere where like we get a lot of our commodities from, like where things are made. It felt like it was just like so outdated.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there obviously are issues in China with regards to like workers issues.
Right.
Like, yeah, like it's fine. Like, but the thing that didn't make sense, I guess, was like, so the reason why they get lung cancer or mesothelioma is because of the sandblasting. I guess it was silicosis, which is silica particles in your lungs, which then you know, create scarring and cancer or whatever. Silicosis by the ripping of the genes, or the fake ripping of the genes or whatever process. But none of the clothing in the stores had ripped jeans or anything like so that was like a plot hole, I guess. But like, yeah, I mean, he could have chosen any country. I guess China, you know, makes the most sense because it's like, you know, the one that is always kind of demonized in the West, and like it's the easy sell. It's the easy like, punching bag, right?
Yeah.
Because
they're our number one enemy.
Yeah. And
our in quotations.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they could have chosen like Vietnam or like South Korea or yeah, as you said, Philippines or India or whatever. But I guess that wouldn't have been as romantic for Boots Riley. Right. But yeah, I think we can kind of start going into the conclusions of the film, or I guess the major critique of the film, which was basically the only conclusion to these contradictions is social democracy and reform of American capitalism, and reform of workers' issues in the third world. Like, basically it ends with like this montage of like, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's just like video clips of like
news,
like union power, and then in China they also have union power, and then Poppy's family doesn't have cancer anymore. So it's kind of showing that like they won. The dialectical materialism gun made them win the things that they wanted. So it's like a happy ending. But yeah, I think this could have been a better film. I think there are better critiques of capitalism, and I guess it's more subjective for me that like this like surrealist, like hyper surrealist display that Boots put on isn't really like particularly my favorite way of like showing capitalism. Like I think like not being so obvious about it and like having the audience create their own thoughts and like opinions about the critique of capitalism that you were displaying out there in a more like, I guess, like less obvious way is a better way, in my opinion, of like critiquing capitalism. And it kind of goes back to like music and like the way I like to listen to music that is like more anti-capitalist is like it has like themes of anti-capitalism and shows like the struggle that people are experiencing under capitalism and talks about that rather than just like, I love communism, dialectical materialism, you know, like in your face.
France Fanon, Wretched of the Earth.
Yeah, so I think there are definitely better movies out there that we could recommend and put in the show notes that I don't have in my head right now. But a lot of like older movies I've watched, like Spook Who Sat by the Door is a good movie. Watermelon Man is a really good movie, and that's more of a critique of like, it is a critique of capitalism. It's like specifically like American, like
Euro-American,
yeah,
1950s lifestyle,
60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And they also show, like, the real overthrow of capitalism is you need guns, and they include
you
guns
actually have to, like,
you actually have to
your
have
own
like, armed struggle.
Yeah. I think a major issue with the film is that it pushes like it's basically this labor aristocratic like film. Like, it pushes this idea that, like, workers in the first world, like, they don't get all these, like, benefits from the exploitation of the third world. They don't get super profits. They don't get any of these things, and that they are just as exploited, just in a little bit of a different way, but just as exploited as the people in the third world. And that, revolution here is so much more necessary than revolution there.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're depending on us. It's kind of this Western chauvinist labor aristocratic, like a viewpoint, worldview that workers' struggle here, like, will lead to revolution, which then will lead to freeing the third world to have their own revolutions or whatever, which is inherently has been critiqued since the science of scientific socialism, like, from Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Mao. Revolution is not happening in the first world; it's happening in the third world, and that, like, to have this, like, especially have this, like, kind of, like, multicultural, like, workers' revolution is, like, one, is problematic because, like, it negates, like, one, the oppressed nations within the so-called United States. Like, there are new Africans, there are indigenous people that are exploited, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they need to have their own, like, national liberation struggles, national liberation, like, revolutions here to balkanize the so-called United States. But that was all negated by, like, this multicultural first world workers movement that ultimately ends in social democracy, which, like, is the ideological conclusion of Western chauvinist labor aristocratic communism, is social democracy here, with the continued exploitation of the third world, the continued like, standard of living here, but things are cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, that's what, like, a lot of the chauvinistic, like, settler communists say. They want a lower standard of living and easier access to commodities, which is, like, the quiet part out loud is they want to exploit the third world the most.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately this conclusion of social democracy and reform, like, it allows for social democrats, left liberals, to see this film as, like, a conclusion to what they want to see in the world. And it leads down the ideological dead ends of electoralism. It leads to trying to vote for the next Bernie 2.0, AOC, whoever, is running for president, whatever reform of the American capitalist system, to have a more gentler capitalism, but negating what actually happens in the third world. I think that's a major issue with the film. Like, the conclusions are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, there's better films that kind of touch on, like, what conclusions could happen in an alternate reality, like A Spook Who Sat by the Door, Watermelon Man. There are other films that aren't in the so-called United States, like Battle of Algiers, etc., that touch on that as well. But, I think ultimately, like, I Love Boosters. I was going to say Sorry to Bother You. I Love Boosters is a lot more of a flawed movie than Sorry to Bother You. Though Sorry to Bother You has the same conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
It has the same ending. but I think, stylistically it's a better movie.
Yeah. And I think, like, the main point of our, like, combat liberalism is to, call out things and get people thinking about the liberalisms within your life, liberalisms within culture you see around you, this movie being one of them, the major liberalism is the Western chauvinism that Boots Riley has, of that Geraldo was talking about. So yeah, we're hoping to have more combat liberalism series, whether that be in critiquing current events, critiquing art and culture. We're not gonna be movie reviewers, but yeah, this is just like our thoughts on I Love Boosters and Boots Riley and his internet presence and response to the movie. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed listening today to our podcast, and I hope that you can check out more of our podcasts on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're also on YouTube for folks who don't use those other platforms. We currently in CLP, it's the month of August, it's Black August, so be looking out for more content from us about that through our podcast, social media, etc. And yeah, we are very close to our goal for our Give Butter, as we always talk about on the podcast. We are less than $1,000 to $20,000, and it's getting closer for us to open our headquarters. So if you would like to support us, that'll be in the show notes, our Give Butter, and then also our Buy Me a Coffee, which will be a monthly subscription if folks have that extra super profits to contribute to our organization. We have different tiers, and there's different if you pay $10, you get a poster every 3 months from the org, so you get 4 of them a year, and they're designed by our organizers, not using AI or anything, actual art designs. So they're pretty cool, and you'll get a new one each quarter. And yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. Follow us on social media, Instagram at Community Liberation Programs, Twitter or X at ComLib Programs. And yeah, thanks for listening. Geraldo, do you have anything to add?
No, that's pretty much it. Hope to see y'all at anything that we're doing for Black August. We're hoping to have a Black August event at the end of the month. No details just yet, but there will be details later. You can also subscribe to our Substack, communityliberationprograms.substack.com, and get access to our monthly newsletter, which will actually share our events and things that are happening each month. So please subscribe to that. If you haven't already, come out to our programs, come out to our political education and letter writing night, our political prisoner letter writing night. That's happening every third Wednesday, which is 8/19 this month. Please come out, connect with political prisoners, talk politics with them, and engage with the struggle, especially during Black August. It's a really important time to get connected with political prisoners. But that is pretty much it for today. I think we could end it. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.